when you want to have a great idea, a big idea, a breakthrough, to me, we need to work on silencing the mind. We need to work on silencing the distractions. We need to be present. We need to be in the moment, and we need to be in that mindset that we're trying to get some inspiration. We're trying to get some sort of transformation. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Doc Jacque Show. So today I am 4 days back from doing the guys trip with Kyle, Andy, Sean, Jared, a lot of really phenomenal people. And a question was posed to us while we were there. And it was a very great question because it kind of stumped all of us. And the question was, where do great ideas come from? Right? And we knew where they didn't come from. You know, Sean was saying, they don't come from being under fluorescent lights or being trapped in an office. That's exactly where they don't come. But in terms of where they do come, what do you need? Where can you find that inspiration? And so from that, it got us all thinking, and it got us to think differently. And it really excited me because, when I went into this experience, right? Was it uncomfortable? Sure. Anytime, first off, I'm not a huge fan of flying, especially with the regulations with trying to throw masks on people. Makes me really uncomfortable. Makes me really uncomfortable to see parents put masks on their kids. It looks like little muzzles in the airport. That stresses me out. So for like a day or two prior to even going on the trip, my level of stress is incredibly high. After that, you get on the plane, you're crammed tight. I had middle seats the entire way there, working, in an uncomfortable spot. And when you're able to get out of your environment, right, you're able to change your routine. I didn't have Megan here. I didn't have the kids here. I didn't have my ultimate focus just 100% on being on the patients and things. And so I was able to get some more work done. I was able to make some PDFs, some templates, some protocols, some diets, etc., all while taking a 3-hour flight to Chicago, connected over and went into Fargo, North Dakota. And that's where we landed, was in Fargo. Then we went to Ponsford, Minnesota, I believe, Kyle. So for those of you who don't know where that is, it's like up in the middle of nowhere, which is fantastic. It's exactly what I wanted. In fact, this year, Megan was like, we got to figure out what we want to do, what trips we want to do for this year. And I was like, quite honestly, I want to just drop off the grid. I want to go to a location where there's no cell phone service, there's no distractions, there's no nothing, where you're just able to be and just be in that silent space. And so I had that opportunity, and Kyle got brought into my life for a reason. The guys trip was being promoted. He knows a lot of the same people that I do. And so we went and we did it. And the reason I'm giving this backstory here is the point of building the great ideas category. Okay. Because when we went into that weekend, we weren't sure. We had uncertainty, and uncertainty can make us uncomfortable. We don't know who's going to show up. We don't know if we can be our true selves. We don't know if there's going to be judgment. There's so many unknowns that if you just get bogged down in the unknowns, just like we do every day, then you're not going to have growth. You're not going to have inspiration, and you're not going to have transformation. So when we show up there, we're all sitting around this campfire, doing stuff that I haven't done. I mean, sitting around a campfire I've done, but we were splitting wood. We were learning how to use a chainsaw, which was one of the most thrilling and terrifying things in the world. As we're going through, he's the guy Ryan up there, he owns a resort. He's going through the how-tos, so how to use the chainsaw. And I'm over here like a meathead, like, it's a chainsaw. Like, I got this. And he's going through how. And then he goes, but don't. And he goes, don't do this, because then it can go up and a chainsaw can go through your face. And don't go down, because then it can go through your leg. And don't cut your toes off. Don't cut your foot off. Like, what do you do? So in that instance, I had fear. And fear, a lot of times, is a strong motivating factor. Fear makes us become recluse. It makes us hide away. Or it's an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves. And so I was the first to run that chainsaw. And holy cow, was that, first off, a forearm workout, which was great. But then just the sheer force and what you're able to do and what you're able to do with the logs and how quick. It's just like you're running a warm knife through butter. Boom, it's going down and through. And it allows you to be present in the moment, which is something that was kind of telling of the entire weekend. I didn't have my phone until I would come back at night just to text the wife and kids, shoot a little video real quick and try to send it out if it's sent, because the service was bad, which is great. But you're able to challenge yourself in new situations and new environments. And through doing that, you also gain a sense of camaraderie, because we're all there. We're all in the silence, and nobody knew what time it was half the time. We weren't keeping track of it. I didn't know what day it was half the time, which was great. It's amazing, because when was the last time, okay, you were like, I don't even, like, you go the whole day, not once looking at your clock, looking at your phone. I mean, try to think of the time that you've done that. And I'm telling you, there's massive benefit to that, because these things are just a distraction from us being able to enjoy what's actually in front of us. So when you want to have a great idea, a big idea, a breakthrough, to me, we need to work on silencing the mind. We need to work on silencing the distractions. We need to be present. We need to be in the moment, and we need to be in that mindset that we're trying to get some inspiration. We're trying to get some sort of transformation. So we're sitting around the bonfire, and, this guy, David, who was one of the most humble people I've ever met. And it turns out his stuff is in the Smithsonian for bird carving. And like, you're hearing his stories, and we were joking around, like, I bet this guy is like famous. Like, he's so chill. He's so relaxed. And he said something that was he said a lot of things that were very profound. Hopefully he doesn't get upset with me sharing this stuff, but it's true. He had the ability in life, right? He was a teacher. Him and his wife were teachers, and that wasn't where his passion was. So he chose to take an entire year off to figure out what he wanted to do. He had a huge passion of bird watching, and he was apparently good with his hands. So he started making little birds, and they turned into, I think, log bird carvings, like wood carvings. And it was just one thing after another. And then he would sell those. He said we'd do maybe 6 or 7 of those a year, sell them, and make enough money to live. In that time, he was like, okay, this is great. But he had to constantly evolve. And then eventually he was like, you know what? There's a lot of competition out here. I need to make a pivot. What did he do? He took another year off. Okay. Which, just saying that's like, ooh, that's stressful. But each pivot that he made was a phenomenal pivot. The next thing he did was he bought land in Minnesota, right on a lake. They said they always wanted to live on a lake, so they bought land. It took them 10 or 12 years, I can't remember how long, 10 to 12 years to build their house. And in that, okay, they were still wood carving, doing those things, and they turned that house and then had that land turned into a resort. So they stopped selling the birds, turned into managing one of the top resorts in Minnesota. And just the level of care, the attention to detail that he has and his family has is something that's truly inspirational. And the ability for him to be able to separate himself from the hustle and the bustle of life and say, hey, I need to take some time off, is truly profound. Because again, each time he did that, he went up to the next level of growth for his life. And he said something again around another bonfire. Now, this wasn't really, but this was a huge fire. This was like a controlled forest fire that we had in Minnesota, which clearly you can't have in Arizona. That's highly frowned upon. But he was saying, and I was eavesdropping on the conversation, that nobody talks about stress. Nobody talks about that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting your business, when you're out there and you're getting after it. Nobody talks to you about how stress can start to wear you down. Nobody talks to you about the panic attacks or the nervous breakdowns that take place in life. And I thought that was very profound, because I do, and from a health standpoint, I think that's one of the most important things that people can think about. So relating experience to the science behind that, when you're in a stress state or you're in that fight or flight state, do you ever make a good decision? No. You make a reactionary decision, okay? The easiest one, the one you don't have to think about the most because you want to take action immediately. So when you're in that stress state, there's something that happens in the brain. It shrinks a portion of the brain called the hippocampus, which is your recall center, and it can increase your anxiety. It can increase depression. It can damage your gut. And then the damaged gut will then also have an impact, and we'll do a podcast on this. The damaged gut will then have an impact on how you perceive stress. So if a kitten walks across your path and you're like, you freak out. Or if somebody has their gut under control, like, oh, hi, kitty, and they go and pet the kitten, right? So how do you become successful? How do you build that successful mindset? And how do you then get great ideas? You take the time for yourself. You break your pattern. You break the routine. And in that routine, it gives you space. It gives you space to change. It gives you space to reassess. Either are you doing exactly what you wanted to, or do you like, hey, I'm very successful, but what I'm doing sucks, and I need to have a little bit more control of my schedule, or whatever it might be. But when you have that quiet time, no distractions, okay, and you're just present, and you're with a bunch of high achievers, you're also able to bounce great ideas off of each other. Every single person that was there, from Kyle, Sean, Jared, Andy, David, Ryan, all right, everyone was able to bounce around all these amazing ideas because you have multiple lenses that people are looking through. So if you're constantly beaten down the path with the same lens, okay, we're constantly with our heads down. So we can have amazing opportunities that are trying to happen around us. But if our head is down all of the time, we're never going to be able to see the blessings that are around us. The other thing that happens is we become too distracted to be satisfied or be grateful of what we've already achieved. And this is something that me personally, I take a lot of pride in this, where I love being present. I love being grateful. Like this house that we have, I'm so grateful. Our kids' health, which is going to be another podcast I'm going to shoot, so grateful. Our cars, my relationships with my wife and friends, I'm so grateful for all that we've achieved. And I always do like this inventory check-in when like I hit a new milestone, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this time last year, I was here and now look at where we are. This is amazing. And sitting in that gratitude brings some more love, brings some more joy, and it also intensifies your relationships in a good way. So when we're sitting around the bonfire, we're throwing these ideas around, we're able to build each other back up and kind of deconstruct and reconstruct the way that we're thinking. And again, whether it's you're working too much or you're working too little, or you don't spend enough time with the family, or you're trying to bring on more people and it's stressing you out, right? So you are able to see this from a different lens. But now again, going back to the physiology behind this, the physical aspect of this, right? When we're stressed, we make reactionary decisions. When we're in the space, when we're in the void, we're able to make educated decisions. We're able to be coachable. And that's the thing where we have to be, we have to be slow to speak. And Jared that was up there was a great example of this. He was very slow to speak, and he was absorbing so much information from us and took action on it. We talked about the law of diminishing intent, which is something amazing for these guys, which is like a new car, right? You go on a lot, you intend to buy it, you're so excited. The salesman knows that if you go off that lot and you go sleep on it, the next day, boom, your intent to buy drops. And if another day goes by, drops, right? So if you have a great idea, if you had a thought that was brought to you, it was brought to you for a reason. If you don't take action on it, then it's going to dissipate and go away. It may come back 5, 10, 15 years later, and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have done that. Or I've had people do this. They have great ideas. They speak it out and like, this would be an amazing idea. They don't take action on it. And then next year, somebody else stole their idea and made the product or the device or the program that they wanted to do, right? That actually speaks volumes to me because I need to launch my coaching program. But it's sitting there. It's my little baby. I want to make sure it's perfect, but I'm going to release this thing. All right. So going into this, we have the stressed, shrinks the portion of the brain. We make reactionary decisions. We have the calm, we have the void, we have the patience, and we have that ability to take in all of your surroundings, take in some coachable advice. That's going to allow you to be able to fine tune your life, right? It's like having a really fancy car and you're like, hey, I know how to put gas in this thing. That's about it. But you go and you bring it to a mechanic and you're like, hey, can you tune this? I feel like we can potentially crank up horsepower, or we can add a chip and it can increase fuel efficiency, which God knows we all need right now, right? And then you're able to delegate that out to people who are experts in that. And so if we don't take the time, okay, and we don't sit in the quiet, we don't sit in the peaceful, we don't sit in the gratitude, we're not going to be able to continue to grow. We're going to burn out. We're going to hit those panic attacks. We're going to hit those anxiety states where you don't sleep at night. And then all of a sudden, your body starts crashing down. You can have a heart attack. You can have a stroke due to it. You can have irritable bowel. You can have low testosterone. I mean, really, physiologically speaking, all these things do happen if we have prolonged stress for a long period of time. Not only that, but you also start to tear apart your relationships. Why? Well, because you're so stressed that you only have enough energy to handle maybe 1 or 2 tasks a day. And those are the important things to you, and your spouse will always be there for you, right? That's what they signed up for. But if you go through years and years and years of neglect, what's going to happen? That relationship's going to diminish. Where you put your energy, where you put your attention, energy flows. So if you're just putting it into business, that's your mistress. You're just constantly pouring energy into it. If you're putting energy just into your relationship, which again, it's not a bad thing, but then your business will fail because you don't have enough time, you don't have enough energy to divvy up between the two. So we use the cliche work-life balance, but what that looks like for everybody else is completely different. There's a lot of motivators and inspirators on YouTube, on Instagram. There's all these influencers who are telling us what our ideal day has to look like, what we have to cram into our day, and we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this, we have to do that. Well, listen, that might work for you. You might not have a wife, you might not have kids, or you might not have a husband. And what do you want out of your day? I don't want my day to look like that person's day. I don't want to work 15 hours a day and stress out all the time and always be on my phone and always be distant from my family. That might work for some people. But to me, that would be me hiding from maybe an issue or a problem that I would have with Megan or with the kids. I would just be trying to hide or avoid. So when we're in these situations, we're able to get a different perspective. We're able to get a different vantage point. And I think all the way back and through history, I think the campfire was something very, very amazing, very transformational. First off, it's a fire element. So there's a lot of growth. You can burn things in the fire. You increase your masculinity. Like I sent Kyle a post of like guys before the men's trip or the guys trip. And it's just like a little dome, little fire pit with like a cover in the backyard. And then men after the guys trip, and it's the giant bonfire, little mini forest fire that we had, right? And again, when I'm saying forest fire, we didn't catch the forest on fire, so don't get Kyle in trouble or anything. It was just a really big fire. It was awesome, right? And I think a lot of history, a lot of great ideas probably came around that element. There's something about it, and I said it with the guys, like campfires are just fire in general. When you sit around it, it warms you, it brings you into an element. And to me, it gets me talking, whether it's with my wife or with the guys, like it gets me talking. And I think there's power to that. Now, I'm not saying go right now, if you want a new idea, go build a fire in the backyard and do it. But like we laid the foundation. Like you guys will probably laugh at me. I've got 3 splinters in my hands currently because I didn't wear gloves that weekend. I didn't want to do it when I was swinging an axe and picking up the wood that we had just chopped, the firewood. But we started the day off with no agenda, right? Again, when was the last time you started the day off with no agenda? And we woke up, we had a slow roll out of bed, came out, had some coffee. Kyle had some breakfast and stuff planned for us, which was fantastic. And we were like, hey, like, what do you want to do? And Kyle's like, we've got some trees out there if you want to, chop some trees down. We're like, hell yeah. So we put our boots on, clothes on, and go out there. And I think we probably got carried away, and Kyle had a lot of work to do to clean up all the stuff that we chopped down a couple of trees, and we didn't get the chance to split the wood. But like we split the wood, right? We chopped the tree down. We learned how to do that with a chainsaw. And we had oh my gosh, Sean will get upset with me for not knowing, welling axe. There's a double-edged axe that he had that you're able to chop the tree down, make the wedge, and then chop it from the other side and have it drop. And that's an amazing feeling. And then to be able to take that, split it into woods, have a chopping block, and you chop it with a hatchet or an axe, and you're able to see the wood split, and you're able to see that you are actually creating firewood. You are creating what would sustain life back in the day when we didn't have central air or heating systems in the home. We just had wood. We had the elements. So we went through it, we split it, you get that sense of satisfaction, like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm actually using my hands. I'm doing stuff that we're supposed to be doing as men. And yes, it does increase your masculinity. I will absolutely say, like, I felt like more of a man leaving that guy trip than I did before. And I thought I was pretty good before. I bought a hatchet the day I got back. It should be here tomorrow. I want to chop wood. I'm embarrassed of having firewood out back that I paid for. Wooden spoons. We learned how to carve wooden spoons. Like, that is an amazing feeling. I don't know if anybody else has done that, but David was showing us how to do wood carvings in terms of woods. And they had wooden spoons. We did sauna polar plunge, and Sean picked up the spoon out of the sauna and was like, I bet David made this. It was the most beautiful spoon or ladle that I had ever seen in my life. And sure enough, he did. And so he was teaching us about the 45-degree angles that you have and like the way that you scoop it, and you're able to carve it with a hatchet. And I had like a good idea of what I wanted the spoon to look like, and it went a little bit chaotic at the end, but I could have made that into a spoon. But again, for a guy to be able to build something and do something with your hands from elements and just a sharp object, it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying. So I don't know where I was going with that, but in terms of where do good ideas come from, being in the silence, I think, is the biggest thing. When we're calm, we're in that parasympathetic, we're not in a reactionary state. We're able to sit and process, how do I feel about my day? What does my ideal day look like? What does my morning routine look like? What does my nighttime routine look like? Am I spending enough time with my kids? Am I spending enough time with my family? What happens if this happens? You're able to do this calm troubleshooting, and it builds a new foundation of success. And it's not just business success. This is success just in general. I don't care how many zeros or how many digits you have in your bank account. If your relationship is falling apart, you're not successful. I don't care how you're measuring your success. To me, that is not success. Success is being able to be successful in business for sure, but also that success in business should be able to permeate and go over to your relationships with your wife or your husband or your kids or your family, whatever that might look like. Okay. And that's my own personal opinion. You can disagree with me, but I think what's really important to note is remembering I'm pointing at my phone right now, but remember on social media, you're seeing people's highlight reels. Okay. Not just reels, but you're seeing highlight reels. It's probably why they call them reels now, is because the highlight reels. And so we can't judge our life based off of what's being promoted to us, because these are just commercials of people's lives. Now, there are some people that I've found that are incredibly genuine. The guys that I mentioned, incredibly genuine people. My life, it's on there. Yeah, I make reels, but that's just funny spoofs off of stuff. But what I post is legit. I am authentic, because I can't stand when people are inauthentic. I can't stand fake people, especially when they're trying to build and influence people to be something that they supposedly are when they're failing at it. It just drives me nuts. When it comes to happiness, when it comes to success, I want you to do a little workshop on this, right? If you're driving, then, come back to this. I don't know what minute mark we're at right now, but I want you to do an inventory here. What does your ideal day look like? What does your ideal morning routine look like? When are you working out? When are you getting movement in? When are you eating? Are we sacrificing our health because we're too busy to eat? What does your nighttime routine look like? When was the last time that you dated your spouse? When was the last time you did something fun as a whole family? And I think by doing this, you can start to figure out what it is in your life that's going to bring you joy, and where you're going to spend the most value, and where you're going to spend the most time. Okay? This is applicable to entrepreneurs that make their own schedule, but this is also applicable to people who work a 9 to 5. Okay? I'm not building a life for one versus the other. If you work 9 to 5, okay, you work 9 to 5. What happens before 9 o'clock? What happens after 5 o'clock? What's your routine look like? Are you waking up with news? Are you waking up with scarcity? Are you waking up with fear? Or are you waking up with some quiet time? Or are you getting a workout in? Or like me, do you spend the first hour or two of the day hanging out with your kid? Sage comes down now too, so kids. That brings me great joy. According to most morning routine gurus over there, I need to be cranking out a workout for at least 45 minutes. I need to do an hour of prayer time. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. I need to do that. No, that doesn't work for me, guys. Sorry. I don't care what you have to say. You can judge me and say I'm not successful. That's your meaning of success. My morning, nothing fills me up more than being able to spend great quality time, especially when the kids are healthy, first thing in the morning. I don't even care if they sass me. I don't. If they're running around the kitchen trying to pull food out of the freezer or the pantry trying to grab berries, I don't care. It's a family experience. It's a bonding experience for me. And I don't want to start my day any other way. I'm also not going to undercut that. Hoyt wakes up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to cram my morning routine in to make it work. That's stupid. Okay. First off, it's incredibly sick for you. So okay, from a fundamental standpoint, right? People are like, oh, you need to work hard. You need to work hard. You need to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, guess what? You just cut off 3 hours of regenerative sleep. Okay. 10 to 6 needs to be your sleep window. And you can't make up for it. You can't be like, well, I'm going to go to bed at midnight and then I'll wake up at 8. Doesn't work that way. You damage your circadian rhythms. You damage your circadian rhythms. That means you're going to throw off your blood sugar. You're going to throw off your insulin. You're going to crave crappy foods. You're going to be exhausted through the day. You're going to have poor quality sleep. You're going to crash your melatonin. So can you do that for a short term? Sure. Is it healthy for you long term? Absolutely not. Just like pounding the pavement every single day, it's not good for you. You need trips like this. You need guys' trips or women's trips when those come available. You need those things. You need to have that sense of tribe as well, which is another point that I wanted to get into, is in a world, especially with entrepreneurs, but even the 9-to-5ers, like you have the people that you associate with at work, but you don't really get to choose those people, right? Unless you own your own business, you could bring them in for you. But for the most part, you don't get to. So become the 5 people that you hang out with the most or that you talk to the most. And especially through COVID, a lot of us have been just recluse. We haven't really been talking. We haven't been communicating. We've lost that social interaction piece. So we don't even know how to do it. So then what do? We Netflix and chill and we binge watch movie series that have more than 5 characters. And if you talk to those characters or listen to those characters more than you listen to your wife or your kids, well, guess what? You start becoming more like them. You start having thoughts like them. You perceive danger like them. You perceive stress like them. Those aren't your emotions. Your emotions just got hijacked from what you're watching. Same thing happens with who you surround yourself with. And for me, I have 4 close friends, 5 maybe. I have very few. And I put myself on an island. And I like to say that I'm very restrictive of who my friends are, but no, like it's not because of that. You know, it's because I have my little bubble that I've made. And so when you go and you put yourself out of your comfort zone and you meet people like I just talked about here, you're able to see, hey, I just increased my friends. Like I've got a lot more friends now, and they're like-minded. They're solid people. They're enjoyable to be around. And so I've just made lifelong connections from just this retreat, this trip that we did. And so another thing that can build success besides, getting into the silence is get into the silence or be around community. Be around positive, inspiring, uplifting people. You cannot grow around people who are telling you that you can't do something. Where you grow is where people say, how can we help you to achieve that? How can we leverage our skills, our friends, our contacts to be able to get you to that level? Okay. And it's not like a, hey, everything is business kind of thing. But if you're just around a campfire, you're having a good time, you're eating some food, and you're like, hey, I want to do this. What do you guys think? Right? You're able to bounce ideas off of each other. Is it a good idea? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I work in a grist mill, Sean, and restore really old stuff? You are incredibly good at being, featured in 2 different magazines for it. Like there's a lot of benefit that comes from these types of experiences. So the takeaways from this, besides that worksheet of your ideal day, think about that now. Think about that 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. What do you want your ideal day to look like? I think it's a serious question. What do you want your ideal day to look like? We can always tell us what we don't want it to look like, but where we say we don't want it to look like that, usually, if we put all of our focus there, is what our day tends to look like. We don't want chaos. And then all of a sudden our day is chaos. Like, oh, shoot. I didn't want that. Well, you talked about it all the time. You put so much energy and intention to avoiding it that you brought it to you, right? You spent more time in the negative than you did in the positive, okay? The other thing is, even on flights and stuff, when you're on flights, yes, it's difficult because I found out that the frequency, the vibrational frequency of plane noise is the equivalent of a meditative or a deep sleep frequency in terms of hertz. So for those of you who drink 48 cups of coffee and you're like, I'm going to get stuff done on this plane, and you get in there and all of a sudden planes take off, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I can't keep my eyes awake. Well, it's because the frequency, I don't know if they do it on purpose, but the frequency is that of inducing sleep. You can download binaural beats. Okay, it's not an app that I own or anything. It's a free download. Put it on when you're on the airplane, put your headphones in and listen to, you can slide the bar over and see where that vibrational frequency hits. And you can see that I'm right. But in that, or in the airport, you're able to cultivate new ideas. You're able to cultivate new things, new experiences. So don't be afraid to plan out your day. Don't be afraid to step into space. Don't be afraid to ask for space as well. Okay? Whether it's in our relationship, if Megan's like, hey, I need an hour or two tonight to be able to work on sound bowl healing or sound healing. Can I do that? Yeah, absolutely. It's totally fine. Or if I need to go and shoot video content or shoot a podcast this morning, I was like, hey, are you good if I shoot this podcast? She's like, sure. Yeah, take the light, take the microphone, go for it. Right? So don't be afraid to ask for that space. Don't be afraid to sit in silence. Silence can be deafening. And it takes time to get used to it because we're so used to being busy all day long and staying distracted. It can absolutely do that. It distracts us. Okay? Don't be afraid to assemble your Avengers team, your tribe. Okay? Your ride or dies, your people. And don't be afraid to expand upon that. Okay? Because we all need that sense of camaraderie. As men, especially, we need that camaraderie. Because if we just isolate ourselves, we feel alone. We don't have that energetic connection, and it gets really difficult to navigate life if we don't have those. Okay? So if you haven't been, this isn't a plug for Kyle's guys trip or anything, but I'm going to plug it anyways. If you haven't been to one of these things, I would strongly suggest doing it. I got more out of it now. I thought I got all of it when I was there, and now it's just, again, continuing to spill over here. And the guys have been texting back and forth, talking about their accomplishments this week. Our kids were sick yesterday. I had like a horrible fever, and I canceled my last couple sets of patients that I had because I needed to be present as a dad. I needed to help in that moment. And with that brought a sense of gratitude where I'm so grateful that I built my schedule that I can say, I'm so sorry. And I do feel bad for the patients that I had to reschedule. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to say, listen, Cynthia, I need you to contact these patients and keep them alert for tomorrow because I don't know how the kids are going to be doing. I just need to make sure that I'm here and that I'm present. And I built that life. And so again, taking time to step into that gratitude, like I'm so grateful that I work how I work, and then I work in my home office. This is amazing. So that if at any time something happens and I need to be there as a father or as a husband or as just a great person, because I am, I have that opportunity to do that. I have that opportunity to step into that without distractions, without judgment, without anything. So step into the uncomfortable, step into the unknown. Remember the law of diminishing intent. Okay, law of diminishing intent. Remember, if you have a great idea, start taking action steps on it. Otherwise, next week, it's just going to be a distant memory. Okay, that's probably going to be given to somebody else. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to let you know, where great ideas come from. To me, there's a lot of places, but you have to have the calm. You have to be coachable, whether it's by yourself or with people telling you different ideas. You have to want to grow. You have to be in a good state to do it. Don't be selfish about it. Okay? Don't just be a parasitic relationship. Don't just leech off of everything else. Make sure you give in return and then take action on that. It's just such a great tool. It's just a great experience. So it's a little bit shorter of a podcast here, but I wanted to make sure I got that one in there. We're going to have a ton of different podcasts that are going to go from this to, we're going to talk about kids' health. We're going to talk about gut health. And another thing I was able to do on a plane is listen to different audiobooks, which is fantastic. even if I'm just asleep and subconsciously I'm absorbing it in. But I got really excited about this topic because y'all know I'm obsessed with poop. I'm obsessed with the gut, and just the amount of stuff that I was able to learn in two flights there and one flight back. Man, I'm pumped. I'm jazzed. I got this stuff down. So anyways, be sure to tune in to the following podcast because, again, we're going to be diving deep in it. We got a bunch of awesome interviews that we're going to be doing too. So I'm excited to release those. But once again, thanks for listening to the Doc Jacque Show. It'll leave a review, written review, 5 stars. I know it's a little extra. Even if it's before you even listen to the episode, you know it's going to be good. Just go ahead and throw a review in there. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate y'all listening. So thanks for continuously listening on. And if there's anything you want me to talk about in particular, find me on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM, and I'll be happy to do it.